R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And this right here is about the federal case that just changed completely for Guccimane and Pooh Shiesty. This is about what happened in the studio and what can actually be proven about what happened in that studio. January 10th, 2026, Dallas. A meeting gets set up that looks like business. The purpose was a contract discussion, something that happens in the industry all the time. But the government says that was not the real purpose. They say that meeting was a setup from the start. They claim Pooh Shiesty arranged it, and the whole purpose was to force his way out of his contract. The story they present is direct. They say Gucci was led into a room alone. They say Big 30 produced an AK-style pistol, and they say that weapon was used to force a signature from Gucci. That signature was supposed to end his contract. That signature is the center of this case. They also say the other people in the studio were held. Let's go back to last week when this first went down.
I'm Ryan Rabel. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. Thank you for coming. This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas. 8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., R.I.C.H Jr., also known as Big 30. The complaint alleges that on January 10th of this year, 3 music industry professionals traveled to Dallas for a scheduled business meeting. Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims. As alleged, once these 3 men were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover. As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint. The remaining conspirators displayed firearms and robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items. One of the victims was actually choked by one of the defendants to the point of near unconsciousness. In this case, came to Dallas to conduct legitimate business, and they were met with firearms and violence as alleged in the charging document. This case should serve as a warning to others who believe that using violence and intimidation tactics to rob others in our community is a viable way to conduct business.
Now, everything up to this point sounds serious. It sounds like a case that should be open and shut. But here's where it changes. Here's where the whole thing shifts. There is no video of what happened in that room. There is no footage of anybody being forced to do anything. No camera showing that the signature was under pressure. They say a recording did exist. Big 30 had it on his phone. They also say that phone was destroyed, so now that evidence is completely gone. That changes everything about this case. That forces the government to try to prove it differently, because without video, they can't show you the crime. They have to tell you that the crime happened.
A judge has now ruled there is probable cause for charges including kidnapping, robbery, and conspiracy. One of Big 30's attorneys, Murray Wells, spoke with us after the ruling.
There are certainly gaps in the evidence. The thing doesn't make sense. Sort of the way it's put together in the complaint doesn't make practical sense about how the way this may have happened. So we use this as an opportunity to sort of learn what their theory is.
And bond was granted for Williams Sr. under strict conditions, including home confinement and a $250,000 bond. As for the remaining suspects, their cases are expected to continue when court resumes Monday afternoon.
The evidence that was presented today in court.
Well, Greg, I can tell you that prosecutors say there's cell phone evidence that shows the 9 defendants, including Pooh Shiesty, his father, and Big 30, were in the area prior to and after the incident. Kidnapping. But one of the things that the defense has pointed out is there isn't any physical video evidence that shows this crime took place. A lot of information was presented in court, but there still are a lot of questions in this case. We will continue to follow it as it progresses in court and keep you updated.
Agent from the FBI, Marcellus Hobbs from the Dallas Violent Crimes Task Force, took the stand, and defense attorneys for Lontrell Williams Sr., Pooh Shiesty's father, and R.I.C.H Jr., also known as rapper Big 30, asked Hobbs a key question. Is there any hard evidence, like video surveillance, showing either man possessing a gun or threatening anyone? And Hobbs said no. He also testified that no concrete evidence was found in Wright's car or Williams' homes when they were arrested. But even so, the judge ruled there is still probable cause for both men. And all defendants who appear today based on cell phone data, outside surveillance video, and victim statements that stand uncontested.
The judge still allowed the case to move forward. The judge said there's still probable cause, but that don't mean it's proven. That just means it has to continue. What they do have is location data, cell phone tracking. They can place people at the scene and they can build a timeline around that day. But they cannot show you what happened inside that studio. They cannot show force on camera. And that changes the whole case. This case is no longer about a video. This case is about people talking. This case is about testimony. And that brings us to the real center of this story. Who is going to get on that stand? Because somebody gonna have to say what happened. Somebody has to describe under oath what happened in that room. And the name everybody is watching is Guccimane, because his position is different than everybody else. If he testifies, this changes the case completely. If he don't testify, this changes the case in a whole different way. But this ain't just about a case for him. This is about his legacy. For over 2 decades, his image has been consistent. His identity has been built on never folding, never snitching. He has been seen as somebody who stands on that code. Now this case puts that image in question. This case puts that reputation on the line, because testifying in this situation is not neutral. Testifying gonna be seen as snitching no matter what he say. Even if he is the victim in this case. Even if he was the one set up. That is not gonna matter to everybody watching. Perception does not always follow logic. There gonna be some people who say he did the right thing, that he protected himself, but it's also people who gonna call him a rat. And that part will never go away. Once that label attaches, it sticks. Once that image shifts, it does not reset. So now, he in a position that is not simple. This ain't just a legal decision for him. This is a career decision, a legacy decision. If he takes that stand and points fingers, his image in the culture will change forever. If he don't speak, the case may get weaker, but his image may stay intact. And that's the real pressure right there. Not just what happens in court, but what happens after. Because the courtroom has one standard. The culture has a completely different one. The court cares about truth and proof. The culture cares about perception and code. And sometimes those two things do not match. And sometimes you can satisfy both of them. That's where this situation sits right now. Right between law and image. So now everything comes back to the same question. What is Gucci gonna do? Because whatever decision gets made, it will not just end in the courtroom. It will follow him after the case. It will follow him for the rest of his career. And that is why this is such a big deal for Gucci. This ain't just about what happened in that studio. This is about what happens next and what it may cost either way. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.